Hello, my name is MacPhail, and I would like to sincerely thank the Academy for the International Fellow Award that I'm especially humbled to receive, given my interest in the influence of globalisation and internationalisation in research, and in turn, the internationalisation of the kinesiology space. I specifically wish to acknowledge those colleagues who sponsored the nomination: Hans van der Mars, Missy Parker, Phil Ward, and Pamela Kalina. I've been fortunate to develop my lines of research and practice within physical education and sport pedagogy in areas I care deeply about, with each space allowing me to accumulate more knowledge and hopefully influence with respect to the field. I share here the four main research and teaching spaces. I focus today on the fourth space that captures my continuing contribution to the field. Before I do that, I provide a brief introduction to the common premises of my work, and specifically values and identity, given I will revisit these towards the end of the presentation. I lead by example, ensuring I practice what I preach while also studying it. Fluid identity embraces changing identities dependent on solo and partnership contexts. And I consider networking as a moral practice and as a form of professional learning. As I move to focusing more specifically on participation frameworks across and beyond physical education and sport pedagogy, my interest in this area and associated intentions are captured nicely here. Learning is not so much a matter of individuals acquiring mastery over knowledge and processes of reasoning. It's a matter of co-participants engaging in a community of practice. The focus is thus on the community rather than the individual. It is participation frameworks that have structure, not the mental representations of individuals. And recently, I've had a significant opportunity to note the continuing importance of participation frameworks that position the three related considerations to the participation frameworks across and beyond physical education and sport pedagogy that I will share with you in due course. The bottom line remains and can no longer be ignored and denied. There is a significant gap between recommended practices and policies and what happens in the day-to-day realities of schools. To address this, we need to stop working in isolation and work with and learn from each other, while remaining mindful of systematic differences visible nationally and internationally. And this allows for a shared understanding on why we have set such an agenda and encourages enactment through ongoing learning and capacity building. In looking at the first consideration, it relates to how physical education sport pedagogy, while maintaining our collective identity, can most effectively develop a capacity to engage with academic and institutional changes in productive, proactive ways. Such changes include a continuing heightening focus on the internationalisation of research activities. This, I contend, entails considering extending the groups or communities in which physical education and sport pedagogy is represented to increase the potential to access subcultures and substructures with other academic communities. That is what is commonly referred to as adjoining territories that afford us access to opportunities that we would be unlikely to secure as a freestanding international community. This would heighten the possibilities for physical education and sport pedagogy to be part of a wider network of knowledge production, perhaps through interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary opportunities. For the second related consideration, with respect to professional relationships, this consideration includes, firstly, an overarching framework of professional relationships and define characteristics, roles, and expected tasks of a critical friend, noting that the development of trust is central to both. I contend that the notion of critical friend is a legitimate consideration with respect to considering how to most effectively encourage professional relationships that support and enhance professional learning and development. Secondly, exploring opportunities to provide solidarity, characterised by the will to give. In enacting this, and contrary to common misconceptions, giving does not refer to self-deprivation or giving up something. Instead, giving is a productive act that enhances the joy, insight, and ability of the giver as well as the receiver. And thirdly, evidencing that professional relationships have always been and will always be influential in the professional development and learning of teacher educators. Specific acknowledgement that the social construction of research communities within our field through networks and gatekeepers have significant discursive value within teacher education more broadly. With respect to learning communities, this consideration includes how best to encourage and achieve authentic engagement with learning communities, appreciating that there is a level of messiness expected to be captured through exploring complexity, tensions, and struggles. Also, to explore the related experiences of setting and achieving group goals, shared experiences of planning and teaching students, and the informed development of learning communities towards a community of practice model. The third consideration leads us to looking at exploring the process by which we have and can most effectively work with and learn from each other as close to the inception of an idea or the identification of a grand challenge as possible. In doing this, I use the phrase equitable accountability to capture how best all physical education and physical education teacher education stakeholders, whoever is deemed to be relevant stakeholders under specific circumstances, be held accountable for determining an international framework for strategic planning, proactive leadership, and adaptive designs. Equitable accountability means that all relevant physical education and physical education teacher education stakeholders be legitimised as contributors from the beginning discussions. The increasing need for professions, primarily through evidence-based practice and academic research, to feed policy and practice in the field heightens the necessity for physical education and physical education teacher education stakeholders to consider how best to work in partnership and how best to communicate their shared message, given the intentional or unintentional partnership that exists between physical education and physical education teacher education. That is, changes in one influence and are influenced by the other. The intention of the recent book noted here is to generate a scholarly form for strategic planning, proactive leadership, and adaptive designs to shape more desirable futures for physical education teacher education, teachers, children, youth, and schools and communities. Chapter authors were encouraged to present a grand challenge and propose collective action strategies in response to each grand challenge on how best to respond, as well as whether and how to assume leadership for bold redesign strategies. True to the space of participation frameworks across and beyond physical education and sport pedagogy, each writing team was tasked with presenting a chapter that incorporates professional partnerships in favour of positioning separate experiences. Authors self-identified across a range of professions, including as a consultant for career transitions, a curriculum manager, education officer, pedagogical coordinator, PhD candidate, professional practice fellow, professor, programme manager, school teacher, teacher educator, and university instructor. It should also be noted that while individuals identified currently occupying one position, a number of contributors have transitioned within and across stakeholder groups during their professional career. Indeed, some contributors work in a third space. For example, a curriculum manager working between schools and universities. The complement of authors represent individuals residing in different jurisdictions and include Australia, Belgium, Canada, Ireland, Japan, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, New Zealand, Sweden, the UK, and the United States. Such an impressive collection of individuals encourage us to consider who the actors in physical education and physical education teacher education are, and how to most effectively ensure the respective voices are appropriately represented. It is imperative that we engage with the central theme of this year's annual meeting, social justice. While there are many nuances to the notion of social justice, the concept captures the intention that opportunities and privileges within a society are distributed equally. Such intentions are a common thread throughout my work in promoting and enacting participation frameworks across and beyond physical education and sport pedagogy, given that such frameworks cannot be successful without the genuine and meaningful involvement of all representatives of the physical education and sport pedagogy society. That is, what we learn from and enhance each other's appreciation of what can be achieved from capturing multiple perspectives and the realities of working towards the common good. True to my earlier shared values and identities around leading by example through practicing what you preach, the notion of fluid identity, and networking as a moral practice, along with 5 peak colleagues, we are engaged in individual and collaborative self-study to explore positionality, pedagogical practices, and programmatic decisions that can enhance and/or limit socially just practices. The questions which we focus on during the community of learner meetings include: how can we position ourselves to teach through and about social justice pedagogies? How can we embed social justice knowledge, pedagogical and content in our teaching of our units? And how can we construct a social justice pillar for the reconfiguration of the physical education teacher education programme? Given that the concept of personal empowerment is central to my research and teaching activities and is aligned to social justice, I choose to remind us all of the term equitable accountability I used previously to capture how best all stakeholders, whoever is deemed to be relevant stakeholders under specific circumstances, be held accountable for determining an international framework for strategic planning, proactive leadership, and adaptive designs. Such accountability challenges us all to work towards a shared space that is meaningful for all. Thank you.